Okay, guys, Charlie is with us once again, where we chew the fat after the dust has settled on round four this time and talk about big talking points rather than the actual minutiae of the game, what happened, player ratings, all that sort of stuff. We're talking big picture here and then looking ahead to a very super Saturday. You excited about that, Charlie?
I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm hoping it goes in England's favour, but you never know. But yeah, buzzing for it.
I mean, it could, couldn't it? That's what's good. I mean, not good from Ireland's point of view, but for the competition, we get a Super Saturday, and it kind of sets it up because if Ireland win their game, then they could win the thing. Then if England win the next game, then they're the favourites, and then it's all down to France. And Scotland have a mathematical chance, but I don't think so. But still, I mean, four sides could win it, three realistically. France take the whole thing if they win their game. So it's what we wanted, I suppose.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's worked in the neutrals' favour and the England fans' favour massively. Yeah, don't write off Scotland most. I think it's 52 points it needs to win by, and yeah,
Well, okay, well, go on then. Look, let's talk about Scotland because they were playing that sort of rugby that could have scored 52 points, and then all of a sudden they stopped. I mean, where do you go and kick us off with Scotland Wales then? I know that was the middle match, but
yeah. I mean, it was a game of two halves. The old cliche goes. Basically, first half, like you say, they were unbelievable. Could have scored countless amounts of times, and yeah, just slowed it down, stopped, which I think represents the general issue with Scottish rugby in that they often don't quite get over the line when they maybe shouldn't. Obviously, I know they did get over the line and won, but it was a lot closer than it should have been, and a lot closer than the first half would have suggested. So yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, 6 points in the end, which seems bonkers considering Scotland were absolutely tearing it up. The crowd was having a great time. It was party time. And then at the end, you just felt like the players in the crowd were like, yeah, it's not that good after all. So it took a real shine off it. I mean, was there
yeah.
any particular, I mean, the subs came on. Could you put your finger on what went wrong for Scotland, or was it Wales?
Wales definitely steps it up, no doubt about that. Because the first period they were like pretty poor. It
They were
was
really
it was
bad.
quite a wake up call, but yeah, they definitely stepped it up. But yeah, I think it was more just Scotland just taking their foot off the gas, basically. That's what I'd
Yeah.
put it down to.
Definitely a bit of complacency there. The subs not really stepping up. So, you know, we talk about depth in Scottish rugby and we think they've got a good team. But again, when those subs came on, it really went downhill. And Wales are
Mm.
fighters, but they're fighters with some style as well now. So, they scored some really good tries and it was good. It was a good watch. And once again, we get a Welsh loss, but the crowd is probably pretty happy, the Welsh fans.
I think Wales will be somewhat very quietly confident that they could potentially do something against England, or at least scare them.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, getting loads of comments, from Welsh fans saying, look, this is it. Wales at home, Principality against the old enemy. They would
Mm.
like nothing less than to spoil the English chances. And it would be a good tournament. It's bizarre from having lost to Italy under Gatland to now two good performances in defeat. And if they beat England, you'd say it was one of the most miraculous turnarounds of a team ever, maybe.
Yeah, no, massively so. And yeah, and you can already see it. If they beat us, they'll be saying that they stopped us winning the Six Nations, even
Yeah,
if France end up
yeah,
beating Scotland. But yeah,
definitely,
so
definitely. Oh, anyway, we're bouncing around over the place, which is what we're kind of meant to do anyway. But come, on, Charlie, you lead us with your talking points. What should we talk about?
the biggest talking point that I've seen on social media was obviously the disallowed try, um, which I mean I think was fair enough. I mean rules are rules. Rules are there for a reason. But
Yeah, yeah, and I've had some really good debates. I think I was on watch it on replay. You have to really watch it carefully, and I think yes, it probably was just about right. But then people were saying, well, the player was kind of on the floor, off his feet, and you could have said he's trying to avoid him. I didn't see him as avoiding it, but then I made a point that actually Andy Good of the Rugby Pod said as well when I was listening to that today that in a Moana Pacifica game, a
mm,
same similar thing sort of happened and they let it go. So it could have gone either way. I think definitely.
yeah. Nah, million percent. But I do think they got it right. I think it's another positive result for Matt Sherratt, and I think he's very much staking his claim as a potential long-term head coach.
Wow, that's a great talking point. I mean, because he said he didn't want to do it. He's got his
Mm,
contract with Cardiff, and you'd expect him to say something like that, but he seemed pretty
yeah,
strong in like, no, I don't want it. But the crowd are going to want him, the fans are going to want him, and he'd be quite a logical choice for me. I'll set out the stall here and let me know what you think. As in, here's the cynical side. He's cheaper, number one, which is quite important. I think the other two in the frame had like £500,000 buyout clause or whatever, and that's not insignificant. Plus, he
mm,
knows the players. He's established a rapport with them. They're playing a style that the fans like and the players like, and seems to be, well, not successful in wins, but successful in tries. So it's almost, why wouldn't you?
yeah. No, I agree, and I actually don't think he'd take much persuading. I know he's been saying in the media that
Okay.
he wants to go back to Cardiff, but Test rugby's Test rugby, and you don't get those kind of opportunities too often. So
No.
I think he's just saying that to be a little bit kind of humble and play it down a bit. But I think deep down he will want the job.
Okay, and that's interesting. And to be honest, we don't know what's going to happen in his career, but this could well be the only opportunity to coach internationally, and it's the job he'd be best suited for.
Yeah, no, million percent. I think he's got to be strongly considered, and there's not too much out there otherwise that would be a huge upgrade on him. Really, I don't think there's obviously better, more established coaches, but huge upgrades. I don't know, not too sure.
Yeah, and do you want? I think I've had loads of comments saying we don't want a big name. Why do you want a big name like Michael Checker? Plenty saying, look, we don't
Mm,
want him. We don't really particularly not like him, but we don't think he'd fit. Why do we need this big name who doesn't know anything about us when we could
mm,
have a smaller name? And I think with respect to Wales, they're rebuilding at the moment. They're one of the smaller nations out of the big ones, and maybe you don't want a big name in there. You want to stay under the radar and build.
yeah, and I think that would be beneficial for both sides to have a head coach who's sort of building and learning alongside the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got that really interesting point there, Charlie. Right, keep going. I like this. What's next?
We've touched on it earlier, but the Scotland dropping off, as I said earlier, was I think reflective of their mentality as a team, and as I've already said, the thing that's been holding them back. So I guess maybe we could talk about whether that is an issue, and do you think that is an issue?
Well, I think the evidence shows it is an issue. They've won lots of big games. They've beaten England plenty of times, but yeah, there seems to be this kind of, is it killer instinct? Is it something to do with the game plan, the depth of player? And to be fair, some good comments from viewers saying Scotland do have some injuries here. They're missing Tui Pelusa, of course, missing Redpath could play. There's a few other players that could come into it, some forwards, hookers. So there are a few players, I guess they could say, could come back into it. But no, it's an issue for sure, 100%.
Hmm. And
Right.
I mean, do you think as well that it's a potential mental block that they've got? Because that's what I think the cause is.
Well, if something, I mean, it might not be a mental problem as such, but when it keeps on happening, it then becomes a problem itself. The thing
Hmm.
recurring then starts to become the problem, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And then
that's
when you
a
get in those
that's a
tight situations, you're like, oh, hang on,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
that brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Hmm.
Ireland, France. What have you got for us, Charlie?
It's mental how much the conversation's twitched about Ireland. They've gone from being the best team in the world. Maybe people haven't been quite
One
saying
of.
that, but yeah, the people have been saying that they're amongst the best teams in the world. To saying that they're finished and over the hill, and they've got so many aging players and all of this is yeah. To me, it's just a bit crazy how one game can change the mood of a camp and of a team so much.
Yeah, yeah. It was a big test, though, wasn't it? It was like, and they're at home. I think that's the thing that really stung them is France can be great, and they were, but Ireland were at home, you know, and they hadn't quite fully fired yet in the Six Nations, but still got the results. And this was the time. This was the time to fully fire. I think it hurt them that they didn't have their first choice wingers, for example. They had to play Osborne and Nash, who aren't. as good, basically as their starting wingers, and they're not as good as Lowe and Hansen, and then they didn't have Ringrose as well. So, and then they played Omani maybe, last home game sort of thing, and there was a bit of that. So I think they could have been stronger as a team. But what was, concerning, I guess, is they threw their best shapes at them, like we're talking on the dance floor here, but they threw a load of shapes in front of France, and France just watched them, and the Sean Edwards defence just said, fine, we'll just suck it up. And they sucked it up for 20 odd minutes, and then we're like, right, now try and defend this. And France played almost pure rugby, I'd say. It was close to that unstoppable combination of power and skill and offloading, and then there was a bit of shape in attack, through Intermac. It's like almost total rugby. It was so much, everything was there. Everyone touched the ball. We had the speed of Biel Barry, and it was everything. The offloading of Meafu, and just hard-nosed running and tackling. You had to just take your hat off to it and say that was phenomenal. For me, the problem has been that just psychologically they've had one or two games when they've really dipped. And you'd say, and they've had that against England, but they might get away with it, or it looks like they're going to get away with it, because when it really mattered, they pulled it out away against Ireland. And for a French team to go away and perform like that, I think that's significant as well. So it could actually be quite a big turning point, if you like, for this French team, because every year for the past 3 years, in my videos, I've said, I think France are going to win the Six Nations, and maybe this time they actually will, because I think they've, underperformed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, massively. And as everyone knows, it's theirs to lose now. They've put themselves in a really, really good position.
Really, the perfect position. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it'll be a good one against Scotland. Scotland are going to want to prove a point and show that they can actually stay in a game for a full 80. So it's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be interested from a Scottish fan's point of view whether they actually want to beat France, because obviously it would give England the Six Nations potentially. So it's a bit of a lose-lose situation.
Let's move on. England, Italy.
I don't want to say 100% complete performance, but it was a pretty good performance throughout. I think there was times where it dipped a little bit, but I mean, some of the rugby played at times was brilliant, and in general, it was a lot of decent play with some very good play mixed in. So yeah, it was a very positive game. Good to see. And yeah, obviously you can make the argument that it's only Italy, but like they're not a bad side anymore.
Well, they're the best. So. They're the best they've ever been. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's no mean feat beating them that convincingly, but yeah, I mean, just overridingly positive about England's performance.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. What it wasn't perfect, like you said. There's plenty to pick apart in that, but it was exciting, and the crowd loved it. And I think that's important. I think, people say, it's a results business and the crowd will be happy if they win. But from what I've seen of England, certainly, that's not really the case. That they've booed Eddie Jones teams that have won and just bored the pants off them. They've booed Steve Borthwick teams that have bored the pants off them. And I would like to give credit to Steve Borthwick for this, but, Andy Good's a really good source of rumours. He is pretty convinced that the players confronted Borthwick and said, we are tired of being booed and we can play attacking rugby like most of the rest of the world does. And they proved to him they could. So in some ways, that's great that the players can stand up to Borthwick and he listens, fair play. But it's also a little worrying that it takes that to tell the coach how we should play rather than the coach leading it. So I don't quite know how to feel about it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's a really strange potential situation that could have happened. Yeah, I don't know, because like you say, it's good that he's listened to the players and has actually took on their feedback. But yeah, like what? I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know how to feel about that either. I think it possibly reflects quite badly on Borthwick, but then at the same time, it is positive. Yeah.
Well, I think that's just. I think that's just him, to be honest. He is naturally boring, which is fair enough. That's just him. He's conservative. He's a bit dull. And that reflects in the way his teams generally play. But he is intelligent. He reads a lot of leadership books. He understands leadership, and he understands you should listen to good ideas. And empower players. So it's like, I think he is a good leader. Is he a revolutionary top end tactical coach? I'm not so sure, but I don't know. I want, hopefully they can carry on with this. That's what I want.
Yeah, and hopefully they can carry on with it against stronger opposition, which annoyingly, given that we're playing Wales, who will put up a fight but aren't necessarily the strongest opposition, we won't actually be able to find out the answer for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think it would be wrong to go back to a arm wrestle type game when you kick it to Wales and say come at us, because I think Wales will love that. I think they want it to be an arm wrestle. I think if England play exciting rugby, and they scored 7 amazing tries, don't get me wrong. I mean, the first try, the Willis try, was brilliantly built up, and then it had power as well. There were so many great things, great handling. I think England can outplay Wales. I do. I think they can have the power edge. I think they can have the set piece edge, and they can play. I think that's the way to go at them rather than kind of sit back and say, come at us.
Yeah, no, massively. And that is what they did against Italy. And yeah, it's just about repeating it and just about continuing to do it and continuing to stay positive.
Yeah. And you get better if you practice a way of playing, you get better at it. If you keep on chopping and changing, I think that can limit a team as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there obviously was a bit of chopping and changing with the Ollie Lawrence injury, but that's forced. And luckily it worked out. I thought Elliot Daly played really well, and I quite liked Marcus Smith. He grew into the game, I'd say, but yeah, I liked him again. So yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked about that quite a lot in other videos, so I won't go into it. But I'll give the positive to England is they were given a very difficult on-field situation, the coaches and the players. It's like, that's it. Our power has gone in midfield. What do we do? Do we take Freeman off the wing? What do we do? So they moved, and I don't think they wanted to do it this way for sure, or that early, but they adapted. It wasn't perfect. You know, Marcus Smith struggled in certain places, excelled in other places. You didn't have power in the midfield, but they both played well, and they adapted and still scored loads of tries and won comfortably. So I don't think that's the way they wanted to set up, but they cope with it, which is impressive.
yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, as I say, it's a very positive game. I think you've got to give credit to Steve Borthwick. Obviously, a lot of fans are very critical of him, and quite rightly so sometimes. But I think you have to give him credit for the way he set up and the way he made those changes, as you've said. So yeah,
Yeah.
credit to him.
I think the other big positive for me on this, finally on the England game, is there are players in form. There's a lot of players who are really hitting their straps. They're looking really good. Will Stewart has just exploded. I mean, I got a comment the other day saying that, you know, I was saying he was quite ordinary a couple of years ago, that maybe they should look elsewhere. And I stand by that. I think he was looking rather ordinary a couple of years ago. But he himself has said in the last year or so, he's really improved, partly because he's managed to shrug off some injuries he was struggling with, which kind of makes sense. And he's getting into his late 20s. He's maturing. That's brilliant. Chesham, we saw back, was looking really good. All the back rowers look fantastic. I think Tom Willis gives you that big number 8 that we've been missing. And then all the flankers, I think, have been phenomenal. And then, you know, we've talked about the backs. We've got Mitchell, who looked liberated playing that sort of game. Finn Smith starting to grow into it. Freeman is looking a freak. He was so
brilliant.
much more powerful than he used to be, and he's just getting involved again and again and again. So, you know, if you keep on playing a certain way with those players and maybe adding a couple more in, you've got a very good team there.
Definitely. And the cohesion in the backs has been showing as well, given the fact that a lot of them play for Saints,
Yep.
which, yeah, that's definitely helped as well.
For sure. Okay. Charlie, thank you very much. I think that's a great place to leave it. We are excited, looking forward to Super Saturday. Let us know what you thought of round 4 and what you think is going to happen in Super Saturday and why. So, yeah, pop those comments down below. Do subscribe. Check out Sports News Blitz for all their great Six Nations content. They've got some really good articles there from the likes of Charlie, his friends as well. Some really good stuff going on. But, yeah, thank you very much, Charlie.
Cheers. Thank you for having me.
No probs, and we'll catch you next time.